This first story comes from the New York Times. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants to ban drug ads on TV. It wouldn't be easy. So this was one of those stories where, like, when I read it, I was like, I am in support of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s proposal here. Yeah. And I absolutely 1,000% am in support of banning drug ads on television. I think they're cancerous, like problematic in every conceivable way. I was going to ask you this because, Cecil, you still have cable, right?
Yeah.
So here's a weird thing. I don't have cable. So, but I still have, like, somehow when you buy a smart TV, and all TVs are smart TVs now, when you buy a smart TV, you just turn it on, it's connected to the internet, and there's like 1 million channels.
Yeah.
And I don't have cable, but they're just like these like crazy amount of channels, and they're all ad supported. But if you watch anything on those, the preponderance of the commercials are drug ads.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like when I'm at your house, you guys are watching cable TV and you get regular ads like I remember growing up with. Yeah. But if I watch like one of these like internet supported ad TV shows, I'm not exaggerating, dude. It's 80% of the ads are drug ads, maybe more.
Yeah.
It's almost every ad are drug ads. It's kind of fucking crazy. But banning these drug ads seems like constitutionally maybe impossible.
Yeah, there's some uphill battles that they'll have to do. They'll have to fight with the well, they won't have to fight with the FCC because the FCC guy, the incoming FCC guy, is on board with it. The first thing I want to say straight up about this whole thing is that this feels not like a pharmaceutical problem. It feels like a capitalism problem, right? Like we have a weird system for our fucking how people get drugs. Like the reason why they don't need these in other countries and why they don't make these in other places in the world and why if you go to UK, you won't see a drug ad like this is because they don't have the same kind of healthcare system we have. It's inherent in our healthcare system that this sort of thing, I guess it's also in New Zealand, but we're we're like one of the very few countries of 2, I think, that allows this sort of thing to happen. Drug companies can directly market to users, like the end user, not somebody who's going to maybe give them the like prescription, but somebody who's going to use the actual drug. They can ask their doctor about whatever. And, you know, they initially said the reason why they couldn't do it on TV is because there's just this big, long list of like side effects you'd have to read. You just have to read an intense amount of side effects. And then they decided to curtail that and say, well, you just have to read the most dangerous or only like a short list of the side effect problems. And that's what they do on these commercials. But these things, they basically churn out money for these companies, but it's because it's a capitalist system that it causes this. Like there's a reason why this exists. And it's like, you know, I think like this is one of those things where you're like, okay, but there's a deeper problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, and from a free speech standpoint, you know, one of the things the article raised is like, hey, you know, like there's going to be real problems curtailing this kind of ad because it's a free speech issue. And we've already established that corporations, so this to me goes back to the horrible fucking Citizens United decision,
Citizens United, yeah.
Citizens United is probably one of, if worst. Not the most damning.
I mean, it's like Dred Scott than fucking Citizens United.
For real. Like, at least Dred Scott's over. You know, at least Dred Scott got fucking tossed. We're still fucking in the middle of Citizens United.
Hey, Tom, I just want you to know, maybe not. Okay,
yeah, I know we going back to it.
Okay,
I'm dreading
they may
it.
Go back to it as precedent. How do you know?
I know, right? Yeah, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Brown versus Board, wrongly decided. Oh my God.
100% could happen tomorrow. 100% could happen tomorrow.
Wrongly decided.
Yep.
But like with Citizens United establishing that money is money as a form of speech and that corporations are a type of people, it makes it damn near impossible to break this out. To say like, okay, well, you know, we are not going to allow this specific kind of speech from this specific kind of company in this particular, using this particular megaphone. I get that. Like the thing is like, I want the result. I desperately want the result. And I know the article does say that like, you know, that there is some reason to think that there are people who gain access to certain medicines or even gain access to certain diagnoses because they've asked about certain medicines, because they go to their doctor and engage in conversations. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little dubious. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm dubious that outweighs the
That feels like
bad.
that feels like that was written for the New York Times by a pharmaceutical company.
It really super does, doesn't it? Like, I read that and I was like, okay, Jan. Like,
Sure.
I don't know, man.
Sure, Jan.
I want to acknowledge that that's in the article because like,
Hey, you know what's interesting though is there are things you can't advertise on television though.
you can't advertise.
You can't
firearms.
advertise guns. You can't advertise cigarettes.
That's true.
So,
You used to be able to. So there's a precedent for that.
Yeah, but they cut that shit out.
That's true.
That's
true,
to not
Cecil.
be able to. I want to say there was a liquor or an alcohol or something I thought that wasn't able to be for a while, but now I thought it was hard liquor wasn't able to be advertised, and then they changed the rules on that.
Yeah, because I think I've seen advertisements for like
Oh yeah, I
booze.
see like hard liquor stuff all the time. There's Jameson's, there's fucking Crown Royal and all kinds of other terrible whiskeys out there that people want to drink.
God.
But yeah, no. So like there are things though that you can ban. I mean, we've seen it. You can't just be like, the AK-47. Absolutely have to kill every motherfucker in the room or whatever. You just got fucking Sam Jackson as your spokesperson. You can't put those on television.
Okay, so that's interesting. So that makes me a little more. I hadn't thought of that angle for some reason, but like that's very true. You also can't I've never seen an advertisement for like the local adult bookstore either.
Yeah, right. Like there's certain stuff like that. You're just so it's possible you could get this through. Another piece of this that I want to touch on is like, I think motive matters, right?
Yeah.
I think like wanting to take this off because it's predatory from the companies and they're making a lot of money off this. That to me says that's a good reason. But I want to read a tiny piece of this article. And this is Kennedy's explanation. Mr. Kennedy, however, has nothing positive to say about drug advertising. He contends that the drug ads are steering sick Americans towards useless medications, contributing to high rates of chronic disease in the United States. Quote, they're not making us healthier. It's in a true free market, we would be getting good information and wouldn't be taking so many of them, end quote. And you're like, dude, like all of this to me feels like there's an undercurrent of distrust of the medical industry. And I get that, sure, should we distrust the pharmaceutical companies? I think so, on a certain level, absolutely. We definitely should be, we certainly shouldn't just be like, well, we'll just let you do whatever. We should definitely put regulations in. We should definitely make sure we keep our eye on them, et cetera, et cetera. But to undermine the entirety of what they do, that to me seems like a problematic statement. And when you create this narrative, you're undermining medicine itself.
Yeah. The problem I have is that when we think about, in my view, when you think about medicine, I think it's really difficult to think about medicine in binary ways that are important and honest. So medicine, the practice of medicine, the delivery of medicine, the consumption of medicine, these are all so bound up in these capitalist systems and in these different drivers that really make the idea of like, hey, how much trust should we have? It's not complete trust, right? And I'll tell you an experience that tells me that I had when I was sitting in the emergency room just this last week. In the emergency room at Northwestern Hospital downtown Chicago, that's a very nice hospital. It's a great hospital. There are signs all over every room. There's signs all over and in the hallway that basically say, you need to look up your own medicine. You need to learn about your condition. You need to advocate and talk to your doctor. Like they tell you, like, you can't just show up here and just be like, I don't know, do what you think you should do. Like there's signs all over saying, don't do that, right? There's signs all over the hospital that say like, ask questions, look up your medicines, learn about your condition, like be your own advocate, bring somebody with you to ask questions if you can't. There's signage up telling you like how to be a good patient in a way that does put some amount of onus on you. I think it's a true fact that like in America, we have a push-pull where we want to have faith in the science of medicine. That's incredibly important. We want to have faith in the science of medicine. we should also have some amount of credulity about the clinical practice of medicine.
Sure.
In other words, like you should be involved. You should ask questions. You should not accept the first opinion. Opinions are called opinions for a reason, right? It's not the first set of laid out facts. It's not like, not accepting the first fact, you're accepting the first opinion.
Yeah.
We should be very much in support of the science of medicine. I am deeply supportive of the science of medicine. I have a growing sense of distrust for the clinical practice of medicine. The problem I have with guys like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and many on his side is that they have a distrust of the science of medicine.
Yeah. That's a good distinction.
Of the clinical practice of medicine.
It's a good distinction. Yeah.
And I think most of the reason that the clinical practice of medicine has gotten so bad is because the profit motive has fucked the system 6 ways to Sunday, up one side, down the other, and in the back end. And we have no like, there's like no getting out of it at this point. You know, like it's like, we've talked about it on this show a million times. There's a reason that like, you know, Americans have the worst health outcomes of all 9 richest nations. Like we don't have great health care in America. We have bad health care. We have bad health outcomes.
Yeah.
You know, like doctors spend like something on average of like 7 or 8 minutes with you in a single appointment. Doctors have been consumed by these sort of like managed medical care groups. You know, like insurance companies increasingly are the funnel point that determine what kind of care you even receive depending on what your doctor wants. Like there's a lot of stuff as a patient to distrust. The problem with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is he starts with the science. He starts in the wrong end. He starts with like, let's not trust the science part. That's the only part we should trust. It's everything else that I don't trust. It's everything else where I'm like, I'm gonna look that up because I'm not sure you're doing the science part.